News18. You're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. February 24th, 2022 was the day Russia launched a military offensive against Ukraine, catching the entire world off guard as the superior Russian military rolled the Ukraine, spreading death and destruction in an unprepared nation. While the Ukrainian forces were reduced to a militia, it did slow down Putin's advance as the West struggled to come up with a concerted response to Putin. At first, the United States refrained from providing aid to Ukraine, while the European powers struggled with a response due to their own dependence on Russian energy. But Ukraine's President Zelensky continued to rally the nation against Russia and maintained the lobbying in the Western powers for support. In time, essential aid, in this case arms and ammunition, began pouring into Ukraine, slowing down the Russian war machine and even liberating Russian-held territory. Now, in a major message to Kremlin, United States President Joe Biden made a surprise visit to the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, promising to expand American aid to Ukraine's fight against Russia. During his 5-hour visit, a brief one though, he paid tribute to the fallen soldiers who have died defending Ukraine and announced a new military aid package worth $500 million. Sending a message to Putin, Biden said Russia thought Ukraine was weak and the West was divided, but he was wrong. He also said that Ukraine reminds the world of what courage is. Zelensky, in fact, thanked Joe Biden, saying the fate of democracy all over the world will be decided by this conflict. The onslaught continues in Ukraine as Putin pours in more Russian forces. But beyond the optics, does Biden's visit mark a turning point in this war?
You know, 1 year later, Kyiv stands, and Ukraine stands, democracy stands, the Americans stand with you, and the world stands with you.
Welcome you in Ukraine. It is a great honor for me and for all of us. We have just had negotiations with the President of the United States in the vis-a-vis format, and then we had a wide discussion with the involvement of our teams. These conversations brings us closer to the victory, and we hope that this year, the 2023, will become a year of victory.
Let me go straight to Ground Zero Kyiv, where Sanjay Suri is joining us live. Sanjay, it did come as a surprise, but a brief visit of Joe Biden is a strong enough message to Russia and also to all the European nations.
It is a momentous message, and it is a massive moment here, Maria, because, well, you say it was a surprise visit. Certainly it was a surprise visit. On the eve of the visit, it was not quite a surprise because through the night, there were massive security arrangements being made in Kyiv. And clearly, there were preparations for something quite extraordinary, which, of course, we got to see. But also, it would not really have been realistic and appropriate for President Biden to have come to Warsaw in Poland, mark the anniversary, and go back as if from the doorstep. That is what had been announced earlier. That would have been a very awkward thing for Biden to have done, considering that the former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson started this visits to Ukraine, and Sunak followed, Macron followed, the German Chancellor followed.
और उसके हमारे कर्मियों ने जिस संवेदना से काम किया वो भी बहुत ही प्रशंसनीय है। साथियों, 2001 में जब गुजरात में भूकंप आया था और उसे पिछली शताब्दी का बहुत बड़ा भूकंप माना जाता था, ये तो उससे भी कई गुना बड़ा है। जब गुजरात का भूकंप आया तो मैं बहुत लंबे समय तक वहां एक वॉलंटियर के रूप में बचाव कार्यों में जुड़ा था। मलबा हटाने में जो दिक्कतें आती हैं, मलबे में लोगों को खोजना कितना मुश्किल होता है, खाने पीने की दिक्कत कितनी होती है, दवाइयों से लेकर अस्पताल की जो जरूरत होती है। और मैंने तो देखा था भूज का तो पूरा अस्पताल ही ध्वस्त हो गया था, यानी पूरी व्यवस्था ही तबाह हो चुकी थी। और उसका मुझे फर्स्ट हैंड एक्सपीरियंस रहा है। वैसे ही जब 1979 में गुजरात में ही मोरबी में मच्छू डैम जो बांध टूटा और पूरा गांव पानी से तबाह हो गया, पूरा शहर मोरबी तबाही मची थी, सैकड़ों लोग मारे गए थे। एक वॉलंटियर के रूप में तब भी मैं वहां महीनों तक रह करके ग्राउंड पर काम करता था। मैं आज अपने उन अनुभवों को याद करते हुए कल्पना कर सकता हूं कि आपकी मेहनत कितनी जबरदस्त होगी, आपका जज्बा, आपकी भावनाएं मैं भली भांति फील कर सकता। आप काम वहां करते थे, मैं यहां अनुभव करता था कैसे करते होंगे। और इसलिए आज तो मौका है कि मैं आपको सैल्यूट करूं और मैं आपको सैल्यूट करता हूं। साथियों, जब कोई अपनी मदद खुद कर सकता है तो आप उसे सेल्फ सफिशिएंट कह सकते हैं, लेकिन जब कोई दूसरों की मदद करने में सक्षम होता है तो वो सेल्फलेस होता है। ये बात व्यक्तियों पर ही नहीं बल्कि राष्ट्रों पर भी लागू होती है। इसलिए भारत ने बीते वर्षों में सेल्फ सफिशिएंसी के साथ साथ सेल्फलेसनेस की पहचान को भी सशक्त किया है। तिरंगा लेकर हम जहां भी पहुंचते हैं वहां एक आश्वासन मिल जाता है कि अब भारत की टीमें आ चुकी है, तो हालात ठीक होना शुरू हो जाएंगे। और जो सीरिया का उदाहरण बताया कि जो बक्से में जो ध्वज लगा था, बक्सा उल्टा था तो ऑरेंज कलर नीचे था, केसरिया रंग नीचे था, तो वहां के नागरिक ने उसको ठीक कर करके और गर्व से कहा कि मैं हिंदुस्तान के प्रति आदर से धन्यवाद करता हूं। तिरंगे की यही भूमिका हमने कुछ समय पहले यूक्रेन में भी देखी। जब भारतीय नागरिकों के साथ साथ संकट में फंसे अनेक देशों के साथियों के लिए भारत का तिरंगा ढाल बना, ऑपरेशन गंगा सबके लिए आशा बन करके उसने एक बहुत बड़ी एक मिसाल कायम की। अफगानिस्तान से भी बहुत ही विपरीत परिस्थितियों में हम अपनों को सकुशल लेकर के वापस आए। हमने ऑपरेशन देवी शक्ति चलाया। हमने यही कमिटमेंट कोरोना वैश्विक महामारी में देखा। अनिश्चितता भरे उस माहौल में भारत ने एक एक नागरिक को स्वदेश लाने का बीड़ा उठाया। हमने दूसरे देश के बहुत से लोगों की भी मदद की। ये भारत ही है जिसने दुनिया के सैकड़ों जरूरतमंद देशों को जरूरी दवाएं, वैक्सीन पहुंचाई। इसलिए आज दुनिया भर में भारत के प्रति एक सद्भावना है। साथियों, ऑपरेशन दोस्त मानवता के प्रति भारत के समर्पण और संकट में फंसे देशों की मदद के लिए तत्काल खड़े होने के हमारे कमिटमेंट को भी दर्शाता है। दुनिया में कहीं भी आपदा हो, भारत फर्स्ट रिस्पॉन्डर के रूप में तैयार मिलता है। नेपाल का भूकंप हो, मालदीव में, श्रीलंका में संकट आए हो, भारत सबसे पहले मदद के लिए आगे आया। अब तो भारत की सेनाओं के साथ साथ एनडीआरएफ पर भी देश के अलावा दूसरे देशों का भरोसा बढ़ता जा रहा है। मुझे खुशी है कि बीते वर्षों में एनडीआरएफ ने देश के लोगों में एक बहुत अच्छी साख बनाई है। देश के लोग आपको देखकर ही, कहीं पर भी संकट की संभावना हो, साइक्लोन हो, जब जैसे ही आपको देखते हैं तो आप पर विश्वास करना शुरू कर देते हैं, आपकी बात मानना शुरू कर देते हैं। संकट की किसी घड़ी में, चाहे वो साइक्लोन हो, बाढ़ हो या फिर भूकंप जैसी आपदा, जैसे ही एनडीआरएफ की वर्दी में आप और आपके साथी फील्ड पर पहुंचते हैं, लोगों की उम्मीद लौट आती है, विश्वास लौट आता है। ये अपने आप में बहुत बड़ी उपलब्धि है। जब किसी फोर्स में कुशलता के साथ संवेदनशीलता जुड़ जाती है, उसका एक मानवीय चेहरा बन जाता है, तो उस फोर्स की ताकत कई गुना बढ़ जाती है। एनडीआरएफ की इसके लिए मैं विशेष रूप से प्रशंसा करूंगा। साथियों, आपकी तैयारियां को लेकर देश आश्वस्त है, लेकिन हमें यही नहीं रुकना है। हमें आपदा के समय राहत और बचाव के अपने सामर्थ्य को और अधिक बढ़ाना है। हमें दुनिया के सर्वश्रेष्ठ राहत और बचाव दल के रूप में अपनी पहचान को सशक्त करना होगा। और इसलिए मैं जब आपसे बात कर रहा था तो लगातार पूछ रहा था कि अन्य देशों के लोग जो आए थे, उनका वर्क कल्चर, उनका स्टाइल ऑफ फंक्शनिंग, उनके इक्विपमेंट, क्योंकि ट्रेनिंग जब फील्ड में काम में आती है तो शार्पनेस और बढ़ जाती है। इतना बड़ा हादसा आपके पहुंचने से एक प्रकार से, एक संवेदना के नाते, जिम्मेवारी के नाते, मानवता के नाते हमने काम तो किया, लेकिन हम बहुत कुछ सीख करके भी आए हैं, बहुत कुछ जान करके भी आए हैं। इतनी बड़ी भयानक कैलेमिटी के बीच में जब काम करते हैं तो 10 चीजें हम भी ऑब्जर्व करते हैं, सोचते हैं ऐसा ना होता तो अच्छा होता, ये करते तो अच्छा होता, वो ऐसा करता है, चलो मैं भी ऐसा करूं। और वही हमारी क्षमता भी बढ़ाता है। तो 10 दिवस तुर्की के लिए, लोगों के लिए तो हमारा दायित्व हम निभा रहे हैं, लेकिन वहां जो हमने सीखे हैं, पाए हैं, उसको हमने डॉक्यूमेंटेशन होना चाहिए, बारीकी से डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करना चाहिए, और उसमें से हम क्या नया सीख सकते हैं। अभी भी कौन सी ऐसी चैलेंजेस आती हैं कि जिसके लिए हमें हमारी ताकत और बढ़ानी पड़ेगी, हमारी क्षमता बढ़ानी पड़ेगी। अब जैसे इस बार हमारी बेटियां गई, पहली बार गई, और मेरे पास जितनी खबर है, इन बेटियों की मौजूदगी ने भी वहां के नारी जगत के अंदर एक और विश्वास पैदा किया। वो खुल करके अपनी शिकायतें बता पाई, अपना दर्द बता पाई। अब पहले कभी कोई सोचना नहीं था कि भाई इतना बड़ा कठिन काम है, इन बेटियों को क्यों परेशान करें। लेकिन इस बार निर्णय किया गया और हमारी बेटियां, भले संख्या हमारी सीमित लेके गए थे, लेकिन वहां पर नाता जोड़ने में हमारा ये इनिशिएटिव बहुत काम आया जी। मैं मानता हूं कि हमारी अपनी तैयारी जितनी बेहतर होगी, हम दुनिया की भी उतने ही बेहतर तरीके से सेवा कर पाएंगे। मुझे विश्वास है साथियों, आप बहुत कुछ करके आए हैं और बहुत कुछ सीख करके भी आए हैं। आपने जो किया है उससे देश का मान सम्मान बढ़ा है। आपने जो सीखा है उसको अगर हम इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज करेंगे तो आने वाले भविष्य के लिए हम एक नया विश्वास पैदा करेंगे। और मुझे पक्का भरोसा है आपके हर एक के पास एक कथा है, एक अनुभव है, कुछ न कुछ कहने को है। और मैंने पूछता रहता था, मुझे खुशी होती थी कि हमारी टोली के लोग सब सलामत रहे, तबीयत भी अच्छी रही, क्योंकि ये भी चिंता रहती थी कि बहुत ही वेदर टेम्परेचर समस्याएं और वहां कोई व्यवस्था नहीं होती। जहां इस प्रकार का हादसा होता है वहां से संभव ही नहीं होता है, किसी के लिए संभव नहीं होता है। लेकिन ऐसी स्थिति में भी कठिनाइयों के बीच भी काम करना, और आप देश के नाम को रोशन करके आए हैं और बहुत कुछ सीख करके आए हैं जो आने वाले दिनों में काम आएगा। मैं फिर एक बार हृदय से बहुत बहुत अभिनंदन करता हूं। मैं जानता हूं आप आज ही आए हो, थक करके आए होंगे, लेकिन मैं लगातार पिछले 10 दिन आपके संपर्क में था, जानकारियां लेता रहता था, तो मन से मैं आपसे जुड़ा हुआ था। तो मेरा मन कर गया कि घर बुलाऊं आपको, आपका अभिनंदन करूं, इतना बढ़िया काम करके आए हैं। मैं फिर से एक बार आप सबको सैल्यूट करता हूं। धन्यवाद।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi there interacting with the NDRF personnel who were part of Operation Dost. Remember, India had sent a batch of medical officers and others who were involved in the relief and rescue operation in the tragedy that struck Turkey, in which over 54,000 people lost their lives. Shifting focus back to US President Joe Biden's visit to Kyiv. Let me bring in my guests now. Fred Weyer is political analyst and Russian affairs expert. We also have Veena Sikri, former diplomat, and also on the show is Kelvin Dark. He is a Democratic strategist from Washington, D.C. Fred, I'm going to begin with you. The Ukraine visit comes at a crucial moment in the war as Joe Biden looks to keep allies unified in their support for Ukraine, as the war is expected to perhaps intensify with both sides preparing for spring offensive. How is Russia viewing this? Because, you know, Zelensky is also sending a message that he is able to unite the biggest superpower in the world on his side.
I think there's no doubt that that message is received. It is tremendously important that the United States shows this kind of solidarity with Ukraine at this stage of the war. It is, I mean, behind the scenes, perhaps a little more troubled. Joe Biden himself has a lot of, sea of political woes at home, and desperately bad approval ratings, and even a majority of Democrats don't think he should run again. So he's got reasons to make a trip like this, to show the flag, to show himself in that active role. And there is maybe softening support in Europe and in the United States for this blank check that the United States in particular has been giving to Ukraine. But at the end of the day, this visit is quite a tremendous boost for the Ukrainians, and probably for the idea of solidarity with Ukraine in the wider West.
I can see Alexei as well joining us. He's a Ukrainian MP joining me from Kyiv. It did come as a surprise to the entire world. But what about Ukraine? Was Zelensky and his team, all of you, aware that US president will be taking a train ride to come all the way to Kyiv?
Definitely, Ukrainian government knew it before, and not just, wow, Biden came. It's not like this. We invited President of the United States to Ukraine, and we were waiting for him. And when he decided that he can come, we are absolutely happy that he did it, because now it's a great moment for this, because these days in the imagination of Putin was preparation for a military parade in Kyiv, which he was going to take in 3 days 1 year ago. And this day he who should show to the whole world his strength and how he's a superpower and everything else. But in reality, this day he is absolutely humiliated. He is just a war criminal and terrorist, and he failed completely in Ukraine. Russia is not superpower anymore, absolutely. And at this day, there is a president of nuclear state in Kyiv. But it's not Putin, it's Biden.
Yes,
so
and
God
Kyiv
bless
is
America,
standing.
and thanks to President Biden.
Yes, I can see that hat as well of yours. But is there a sense that perhaps this visit could have happened earlier? Because, there have been visits by French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor has visited Kyiv, Canadian Prime Minister, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, and former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. All of them have paid the visit already.
It's great that they visited already. I just, several days ago, I met with President Macron, with Rishi Sunak, and I thank them personally for all their support for Ukraine. But that's a great moment to come and for President Biden, and it's historical. It's for the first time in modern US history that American president is coming abroad to the war zone, which is not controlled by American forces. So that is great. That is a very strong signal to, first of all, to Putin, that he should finish this war, get out from Ukraine, that he will never win this war. And the best he can do just to stop it now, not killing more tens of thousands of Russian people, also Russian people, but definitely for us, the most important is Ukraine. So that is, we don't have feeling that he should come earlier. He came now, and that's absolutely great.
Yes. Mr. Duck, the point being made by Alexei is very well taken, that this is for the first time that a US president is visiting a war-torn nation, the one where US doesn't really have a direct stake.
Absolutely. And don't forget that was also a hard way. There are no flights to Ukraine.
Yes.
So that was a very long way from the United States to get to Kyiv. It was a flight to Poland, then a train for many hours to Kyiv. It's a hard and quite dangerous trip, which President of the United States made.
Okay.
Absolutely having in mind to show the solidarity with the Ukrainian people, show that there is no any fatigue of the West on which Russia hopes that it will happen. It will never happen.
Okay. Kelvin Dark, this question certainly that, it's coming at a time when Joe Biden's own ratings are that he is a tired president, that he should perhaps take a rest and not go in for another tenure or fight for another tenure. The question then is that he did not really make any substantial promise. Of course, Zelensky wanted some promise in terms of weapon support, bigger weapon support, and he wanted some speed up in delivery of pledged weapon systems. That hasn't happened. Why do you think, though Joe Biden talked about $500 million, he did not make any new commitments?
Well, I think that we can't underestimate the importance of the commitments he did make. I like to think of it as he came to Ukraine with two sets of weapons. The first set was the $500 million in military equipment that has been desperately needed. But the other set of weapons was this very public show of support by the United States. And the reason that's so valuable is one of the things I think Putin was considering is that there would be fatigue, that if A year ago, he would have thought the U.S. and the West would not have been continually supporting Ukraine. So as we approach the 1-year anniversary this week of Russia's illegal invasion into Ukraine, Joe Biden probably gave them the most valuable thing that he could, and that was to show that our support from the U.S. is unwavering. So I think now there, of course, there are other weapon systems and other things that Zelensky wants, and I think that if the U.S. president and Congress deem it appropriate, then maybe we'll do that. But I don't think we should underestimate the power of the 2 sets of weapons he sent today to Ukraine.
I think that's very well read, Kelvin Dark. The message was here that U.S. stands with Ukraine as long as it takes to repel Russian forces, even as public opinion certainly is suggesting that the U.S. and allied support for providing weaponry and direct economic assistance has started to soften. Let me bring in diplomat Veena Sikri. Here in India, I think the sides have been taken by most Western forces. US, UK visit their premiers, visiting ground zero in a war zone, standing with Zelensky. But as far as India is concerned, it has been doing the tightrope walk, but also sending a message that the 2 sides must come on the talking table because diplomacy and dialogue is the only way forward. So how do you think this visit in particular will make the Indian establishment look at it? How is New Delhi viewing it?
Certainly it is a very important visit. It's a visit taken at great risk, as we have seen, going to Poland and then taking the train to Kyiv. It's a visit directly linked with the first anniversary of the special military operation that Russia launched against Ukraine. And at this first anniversary, I think President Biden wanted to show the complete unwavering support of the USA and, of course, accompanied by all his allies, to the people of Ukraine. And I think a critical factor that has been brought in with this visit is that President Biden, in addition to his talks in Kyiv, is having very important meetings in Poland, where he is meeting the Bucharest 9. Now, this is a group of 9 Central European countries, and it seems to me that President Biden is now trying to give these 9 countries a huge boost and boosting their important role in the whole struggle, in the whole conflict that is going on in Ukraine. These are 3 former Soviet republics, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. And then there are the group of East European countries. There is Romania and Poland and Hungary and Czech Republic and Slovakia and Bulgaria. And now this approach to strengthen these countries and bring them as the frontline states in the war with Russia, this has a great possibility of further boosting, or should I say, taking the war, the struggle, the conflict to the next higher level. It is very worrisome, because we do know that with this visit of President Biden to Kyiv, the requests, the strong demands that Ukraine has been making for more advanced tanks, for fighter jet aircraft, and for longer range missiles, these demands will get a further boost. So you might see more and more weaponry, more and more arms and ammunition pouring into Ukraine. And this will further strengthen the clash of the spring offensive. There's already, as we are getting reports,
so what does it actually mean for China? Because Kelvin Dark, the visit also comes after the US in fact said that China was considering arming Russia in its war against Ukraine. However, Beijing has denied it, as it has been saying that it believes in dialogue to end this conflict. How do you think China will be viewing this?
Well, I think that the visit by President Biden, also the in Munich with the Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken, they made it clear that the United States realizes this is at least on the table to provide lethal help to Russia by China. And I think that the speech today by Biden reinforced the fact that China really has to consider what aid that they're going to be giving to Russia, because not only will that prolong the conflict in Ukraine, but it could make the already tense relations between the United States and China much worse. And, they do have interest, of course, to partner with Russia, but they have also probably greater interest with the United States because of our economic ties. So I think that this speech today was just as much of a message to China as it was to Russia and others around the world who might consider illegally invading their neighbor or doing something along the lines of what Putin did starting almost a year ago.
Fred, let me give you the final word. Kyiv is standing, and it was seen that Kyiv perhaps will fall within a week. That did not really happen. The fact that there has been an evident miscalculation on part of Moscow, that cannot be overlooked either. And is there a sense in Moscow that this is a prolonged war that they have begun?
I think so. I think there is no doubt that they totally misconstrued what Ukraine was capable of, what its allies were capable of in terms of supporting it. They did recognize that within a month and pull away from Kyiv and move back to the East Ukraine, which is the focus of the Russian offensive. But they've also had a mass mobilization. They've reconstituted their army. They are clearly gearing up for a major offensive. And I guess we'll know more tomorrow because President Putin is slated to make his big State of the Nation address before the Duma tomorrow. And, the other shoe may drop.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time, Kelvin Dark, Veena Sikri, Fred Wire, and Oleksiy, who's a member of Parliament of Ukraine. Shifting focus now to debate 2. After losing the Shiv Sena name and the symbol, former Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray lashed out at the Eknath Shinde-led faction, accusing it of stealing the identity of the party, but added that the spirit of the Shiv Sena will always belong to the Thackerays. Lashing out at the election watchdog, which granted the party symbol and name to Eknath Shinde, Uddhav Thackeray called the Election Commission compromised and under political pressure, claiming it should be disbanded. The Thackeray faction has moved the Supreme Court and has said the top court will deliver real justice. The top court will hear the plea tomorrow, where the Thackeray faction says legislative numbers are not enough, claiming to have an authoritative majority within the party organization. But that is where the crux of the dispute lies. The Election Commission decided that the test of party constitution could not be relied upon as the party had not submitted a copy of its amended constitution in 2018, adding that the document itself had been changed to become more undemocratic. So what had happened in 2018 was that the party had gone for an amendment which gave all powers to the Shiv Sena chief. But the Election Commission said it compromised intra-party democracy and perpetuated a fiefdom over party workers. In that case, the poll watchdog felt the test of majority lied in legislative strength, where the Shinde faction had an edge. Even as the fight has moved to the Supreme Court, the question then is the real Shiv Sena debate now settled?
चुनाव आयोग ने जो निर्णय दिया है उसका मैं स्वागत करता हूं। ये लोकशाही का विजय है। हिंदू हृदय सम्राट बाला साहेब ठाकरे जी, धर्मवीर आनंद दिघे जी, इनके विचारों का विजय है।
अगर चुनाव आयोग जिसको कहा जाता है वो ही अगर उसकी नियुक्ति की जाए तो चुनाव आयोग का है। इसलिए मैं कहता हूं कि वो बर्खास्त करना चाहिए। हमारा विश्वास बिल्कुल नहीं है। इसके पहले भी ईवीएम वगैरह सारी चीजों पर हमने हमारी आशंका जताई थी, आज भी सारे लोग जता रहे हैं और मैं तो मानता हूं कि इसको तुरंत बर्खास्त करना चाहिए और जो भी सुनवाई है सुप्रीम कोर्ट में होनी चाहिए।
There appears to be more trouble for the Uddhav Thackeray camp. A notice has been sent to the Charity Commissioner complaining about Sena Bhavan. The notice asks, when Sena Bhavan is under private trusts, why is it being used for political activities? Mayuresh is joining me on the phone line. Mayuresh, just help us understand, what does this actually mean? I mean, what exactly is this notice which has been sent to the Charity Commissioner? Who has sent this notice?
Absolutely. This notice basically has been sent by a private person, and this notice basically says that the Shivai Charitable Trust, which is a private trust which owns the place where Shiv Sena Bhavan is right now, and the notice also says that if this place is owned by a private charitable trust, then how does that particular trust is allowing the political activities to take place there? We all know the Shiv Sena Bhavan is the headquarters of Shiv Sena, where every day some kind of political activity is happening, and after the split in the party, and now the party name and symbol has gone to the Eknath Shinde. We have seen that every day, almost every day, Uddhav Thackeray and other Sena leaders are coming and they're addressing a press conference, holding the meeting. So this notice is basically objecting to that, and they have basically asked the charitable commissioner that how you are allowing a private charitable trust to conduct the political activity in their premises.
Yes, Mayuresh, what does it actually mean? Because, you know, why would a petition of this nature be filed at this juncture? And when you say notice, a notice is usually issued by a court or by a statutory body. I mean, and a private individual cannot really send a notice.
Exactly. So this notice has been sent via a legal firm called a Yash legal firm. And why this notice? Because we all know that the private charitable trust, which is a Shivai Trust, which is owned, or we can say the trustees are Shiv Sena leaders. But the notice puts a question on that when you say it's a private charitable trust, how you are allowing the political activities. And as you know, that Shiv Sena Bhavan is the epicenter of everything related to the Uddhav Thackeray and his camp. So that's why this particular notice has been sent to the charitable commissioner, asking a question on this particular aspect.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Joining me now on the show, Shweta Shalini, spokesperson of the BJP. Sudhir Suryavanshi is author of Checkmate. Krishna Hegde is Shiv Sena Shinde faction member. Abhishek Agnihotri is Uddhav faction member. I'm going to begin with you, Krishna Hegde. You know, one may say that yes, it is victory for Eknath Shinde, but how do we forget that there is that emotional appeal that is attached to the Thackeray family, the Thackeray surname, and the real legatee of Balasaheb Thackeray will be his son Uddhav Thackeray. I mean, do you really have an answer to that emotional appeal that Uddhav Thackeray continues to enjoy? What about the sympathy factor?
Maria, first of all, let me correct you that we are not a faction. We are the Shiv Sena, the only Shiv Sena. Secondly, let me tell you that in 2019, Uddhav ji contested the elections along with the BJP on the grounds of the Hindutva ideology. And it is he who ditched the BJP and went with the NCP and the Congress party. Balasaheb in his entire lifetime said कि अगर मुझे कोई भी दिन कांग्रेस और राष्ट्रवादी कांग्रेस के साथ हाथ मिलाना पड़े तो मैं मेरे ये दुकान बंद कर दूंगा. And he was so much against the Congress and the NCP, but Uddhav ji went together with them. So therefore, one, that emotional factor and that sympathetic factor will not prevail. Secondly, the people of Maharashtra feel ditched that in 2019 they voted for the alliance, the Hindutva alliance of the BJP and Shiv Sena, and their votes went waste. And the votes went to the wrong place. And the representatives went and joined hands with some other parties.
Okay.
And therefore, the people of Maharashtra themselves will take this into cognizance. And in the forthcoming 2024 elections and before
what about
that,
the BMC polls? That's where this entire battle will be settled, I would say. Abhishek Agnihotri, you know, despite all the आप बहुत सारा emotional appeal और emotional भाषण दे रहे हैं उद्धव ठाकरे जी, लेकिन जो मेन इलेक्शन होगा वो बीएमसी का चुनाव है, उसी में शायद सेटल हो जाएगा कि किस तरफ जो शिव सैनिक है वो किस तरफ हैं. तो उसका इंतजार कर लीजिए. सुप्रीम कोर्ट और इलेक्शन कमीशन में जो हुआ, जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में तभी फैसला होना है, इलेक्शन कमीशन में हुआ तो वो तो एक्सपेक्टेड लाइंस में था, क्योंकि जिसमें कोई सरप्राइज फैक्टर नहीं होना चाहिए, क्योंकि दे विल ऑलवेज गो विद पास्ट प्रेसिडेंट एंड द प्रेसिडेंट इज अबाउट द न्यूमेरिकल स्ट्रेंथ इन असेंबली, नॉट अबाउट द ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल पावर.
इलेक्शन कमीशन ने जो निर्णय अपना दिया है, ये बात जाहिर सी बात है, हमें शिव सैनिकों से लेकर सभी पदाधिकारियों सबके संज्ञान में था कि इलेक्शन कमीशन भविष्य में क्या निर्णय देने वाला है। लेकिन इलेक्शन कमीशन अक्रॉस द लाइन जाके जो निर्णय दे रहा है, ये कहीं न कहीं उपहास का विषय भविष्य में बनेगा, क्योंकि माननीय उद्धव साहब ठाकरे अब जो है सुप्रीम कोर्ट की ओर रुख कर चुका है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट पहले इस चीज को निर्णय जब मंगलवार को इस पे सुनवाई करने वाला था, तो ये नहीं समझ में एक बात हम लोगों को आती है कि इतनी जल्दबाजी में निर्णय इलेक्शन कमीशन देने की आवश्यकता कहां से आ गई? इतनी भी किस बात की जल्दबाजी थी? क्या इलेक्शन कमीशन से पहले किसी प्रकार किस तरह के मामलों को सॉर्ट आउट किया है? नहीं किया है। उसका अधिकार सिर्फ इतना है कि वो इलेक्शन कमीशन नए सिंबल्स पे और पार्टी के चुनाव चिन्ह और उसके नाम को निर्णित कर सकता है कि ये पार्टी चुनाव चिन्ह को अलॉट कर सकती है।
अभिषेक जी, मुझे ये बताइए, क्या उद्धव ठाकरे के वकीलों ने इलेक्शन कमीशन को ये कहा था कि आप फैसला मत सुनाइए क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट अभी इस मामले पर फैसला करने वाली है?
नहीं, वो तो हमारे इस चीज की अथॉरिटी पार्टी थी ही नहीं ना, कैसे कह सकती है किसी भी जो है उसको। लेकिन वो किसके इशारों पर इलेक्शन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया काम कर रहा है, ये जरूर जांच का विषय होना चाहिए। ये कौन सा मतलब जो है वही वाला हाल कि बंदर को रस्सी पकड़ के और अपने हिसाब से नचाया जा रहा है। ईडी हो, सीबीआई हो,
नहीं, तो आप बोल रहे हैं कि यहाँ पे बंदर कौन है? इलेक्शन कमीशन बंदर हो गया?
नहीं, इलेक्शन कमीशन बंदर की भांति मैंने कहा, बंदर हो गया नहीं हो गया तो खैर भविष्य बताएगा कि वो किसके हाथ की कठपुतली बन के काम।
bring in Shweta Shalini. The Election Commission's decision may offer legitimacy to Eknath Shinde and his team, but the question is what happens to the BJP, Eknath Shinde or Shiv Sena group now? Because will it be a joint battle that you'll be fighting in the BMC? Because it will be the BMC that will settle in which way the entire, the direction of Maharashtra politics is heading.
So Maria, before I answer your question, I wanted to tell Abhishek Agnihotri ji something. और क्योंकि उन्होंने हिंदी में बात की तो मैं उनको कहना चाहूंगी कि अभिषेक जी, वो खिसियानी बिल्ली खंबा नोचे आपने सुना होगा ना, याद करिए, आपकी आवाज एकदम वैसी ही लग रही है। सेकंड, मारिया, he said, मैंने आपके बीच में बोला नहीं था, आप बोलिए मत। Second thing, he basically said that इतनी जल्दबाजी में किया। Election Commission took 8 months to decide on this. Nonetheless, let me answer your question. See, it is very clear the government in Maharashtra is run by Eknath Shinde ji and Devendra Fadnavis ji. It has been categorically made clear that both of us together will fight every election in the future. And this is exactly what it is going to be, because Maharashtra government is formed on the ideology of Hindutva, and it was fought on the ideology of Hindutva in 2019 also. Unfortunately, there were people who decided to ditch and go with the losers, the so-called losers in 2019. बट नॉनदलेस ऐसा है अभिषेक जी आपके आप जो है आप परिवार की गुलामी कर सकते हैं। अभिषेक जी, आप परिवार, जिस परिवार की गुलामी आप कर रहे हैं ना, उसकी अपने भाई ने उनको छोड़ दिया है। जो थापा जो था ना, जिसने इतने सालों तक बाला साहब की सेवा की, उन्होंने तक घर से निकाल दिया गया है उनको। आपकी स्मिता ठाकरे जी जो है, उन्होंने भी परिवार के साथ नहीं खड़ा है। जितने लोग जो आप इलेक्शन कमीशन को बंदर कह रहे हैं ना, आप अपने किसके उस पे नाच रहे हैं? और ऐसा है, एजेंसी पे सवाल जब उठाते हैं, जब हिमाचल में आपकी कांग्रेस जीतती है, जिस कांग्रेस के साथ आप बैठे हैं, जब हिमाचल में कांग्रेस जीतती है तब तो सवाल नहीं उठाते आप। अब क्यों उठाने लग गए आप एजेंसी पे सवाल? आपको ये तक तो पता नहीं है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो केस था वो अलग था और इलेक्शन कमीशन में अलग बैटल था। आप कह रहे हैं सुप्रीम कोर्ट में हमने कहा था कि आप रुक जाइए जरा, इलेक्शन कमीशन में जरा देर से आप निर्णय लीजिए। 8 महीने लिए उन्होंने निर्णय करने में, और जाके पूछे ना, आपके शरद पवार जी ने तो सही बात कही है, एकदम सही उन्होंने आपको एडवाइस दिया, उनका एडवाइस तो
let me bring in Sudhir Suryavanshi now. Sudhir Suryavanshi, I want to understand from you, since you are the author of Checkmate, and as various Moharas stand on this chessboard, is it game, set and match for Uddhav Thackeray, or is this game still on?
In politics, one thing we have to understand categorically, that in politics, no party or no person get finished in a day or in a month or something like that.
Yes.
If you remember when the Bharatiya Janata Party, passed, that time many people thought that now Raj Thackeray will completely hijack the Shiv Sena and he will be the powerful person. Entire Shiv Sena will move on to the Raj Thackeray. Uddhav Thackeray, mild-mannered politician, he is not fit to the politics, or the person will not able to hold the fort. But what we saw after that he won not only BMC elections, but continued to hold the fort and win the significant number for his party. So one thing we have to understand: nobody gets finished in a day or something like that. Election Commission might have given a bow and arrow, which is a traditional party symbol of the Shiv Sena, and the party name to Eknath Shinde. There are many reasons for that also. That is a disputable thing. But Thackeray will not be ended as a person, as a political party also. If you understand the sentiment of the Maharashtra and the Shiv Sena always emerged on the sentiment, initially in 1960s, anti-North Indian, then South Indian, then Congress and all these things. When the Uddhav Thackeray became a chief minister and Uddhav Thackeray became a party person, there were two different leadership. Uddhav Thackeray became a chief minister, emerged as a leader. Earlier, Uddhav Thackeray leadership was limited with his party or his cadre, or not that much accepted, wide range of people. But today, the way he worked in the pandemic, everybody, cross-section has appreciated his work. Then there are many, lacunas also for that, and because of that only Eknath Shinde revolted, because he could not give the time, he could not, discuss, he could not talk with his own people, so they were not treated fairly. So the revolt was happened. These are the, negative points of the Uddhav Thackeray.
I want to understand from you, because you will understand the Marathi sentiment, you're talking about that. What is the dominating sentiment? If it is about this victimhood or sympathy factor that, that Uddhav Thackeray is trying to invoke, or will it be about compromise to the ideology or Hindutva which Shinde faction is trying to invoke?
See, one thing we need to understand: Hindutva is there, but Uddhav Thackeray is trying to redefine Hindutva. He is not taking Hindutva, which Bala Sahib always talked that Hindutva. He is taking Hindutva, his grandfather, that Prabodhankar Thackeray, from his Thackeray Hindutva, means inclusive Hindutva. Take all caste, creed, religion people together and progress it. He always says in Marathi, not Shendi and Janve, which is a Brahminical sort of the Hindutva. He doesn't believe in that Hindutva. He believes inclusion, Bahujan, which is the Shahu Phule, Ambedkar, other reformists or social reformer believe sort of this Hindutva. He believes in that larger umbrella of Hindutva, not a myopic, sense of Hindutva. So because of that, many people who were against him, like in Dalit community, Muslim community, these people were not liking Uddhav Thackeray and the Shiv Sena earlier. But they are a big fan of Uddhav Thackeray, the way he worked in the pandemic, and the way he handled the his 2 years old government. So everybody was, he became a what we call a favorite name in the middle class family also. The way he addressed his Facebook page, everybody called him like mild manner, elderly
then
brother,
in that case, Krishna ji, here is someone who's the author of Checkmate. He is saying that Uddhav Thackeray clearly has an advantage because of how he has functioned during pandemic. The other side of the view, which is your view, and those who see the view of Eknath Shinde, is that if anything, he was a chief minister, was missing in action, and that is where Mr. Shinde saw an opportunity, because there was a huge vacuum in leadership.
No, Maria, are you trying to tell me that Uddhavji worked in the pandemic and crores of Shiv Sainik, including all these leaders, did not work in the pandemic? I think it was a joint effort. I think everyone in Maharashtra, all leaders in Maharashtra worked towards the pandemic and worked hard for the people. Secondly, when we talk about Hindutva, ours is also an inclusive Hindutva. We are including development along with it. Today, if you see in Mumbai, 10 lakh crores of work is going on, in Mumbai, development work. And we are having the Samruddhi Mahamarg, we are having 7 STP plants, we are having so many other infrastructure projects in Mumbai and Maharashtra. And therefore, the metro rail or, hospitals, you name the thing, it's happening in Maharashtra. And during the Mahavikas Agadi regime, most of the investment had gone away because it was known as the Vasuli Sarkar. And the government was unstable, and there was so much, omission and commission in that government that most of the projects had to flee from Maharashtra.
Okay, I have just 20 seconds for Shweta Shalini. Shweta, the ideology issue has still not been settled, because, whatever said and done, we are seeing this aspect of Uddhav Thackeray being almost emerging as someone who was trying to redefine Shiv Sena's own politics. So which is trying to keep in pace with the modern day politics. He was not the same, he did not believe in what Balasaheb Thackeray believed in, but he was not wrong in believing in what he did.
So, Myra, give me, there are three important things here. First and foremost, I wod want to remind Sudhir ji, see, if he knows the game of chess, it's extremely important that he understands that the king is the king because there is a queen and there are these pawns and there are everybody, right? If the king stands alone and everybody just vanishes off the chessboard, that doesn't mean that it's a checkmate. It clearly shows that you are single, you're alone, and very soon checkmate is going to come. Second, and the most important thing to answer your question, please understand that, what Uddhav ji was trying to do. Yes, as Krishna ji said, everybody worked in COVID times, including common people. Okay. But what Uddhav ji was trying to do was partner with Congress and Rashtrawadi, which the people had almost rejected. They when you actually fight the mandate of the people was given to Uddhav ji to work towards development with Narendra Modi ji.
Okay, Shweta, and thank you so much. My producer is telling me to wrap this debate. Thank you so much for your time, Shweta, Krishna, Igre, Sudhir and Abhishek Agnihotri. We are slipping into a short break. Coming up, a CNN News 18 report on the threat of Chinese apps in mining your personal data. How can you protect your personal information? That and much more when we return. Stay with us.
Powerful on symbolism. Materially, will he make any new announcement of further military aid? Remember, the US is committed to the Abrams tanks. That announcement was made just a few weeks ago. The US alone has contributed close to $50 billion in military and non-military aid to Ukraine since this war began. The Europeans have contributed a substantial number as well. So I think this is going to be again, read in Western capitals, certainly as a message of solidarity. That's how it's going to be perceived in Kyiv as well. But in Moscow, I think Putin is going to be watching this very, very closely as this war grinds into some kind of a stalemate and people are expecting a spring offensive by Russia. They're expecting an air assault and possibly further ground assaults as well, particularly in eastern Ukraine, where in places like Bakhmut, it seems like the crisis, that this war has ground down into a stalemate. So I think at a time such as this, for Joe Biden to land up in Kyiv, be seen side by side with Zelensky, walk down, some of the main streets there, is conveying an absolutely unequivocal message of support and solidarity with Ukraine. And I think this is a significant moment. It's really high on symbolism, and this photograph, like I said, is going to be pasted all across news media outlets around the world.
Zaka, how does one read this? Is a big development that's coming in from Ukraine. The entire attendance of Joe Biden there.
Oh, it's a huge story. The fact that Joe Biden, the US president, is today in Kyiv. He's meeting with President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine, as well as other senior officials. These are the first pictures that we have of him in downtown Kyiv, in central Kyiv. Remember, for the last hour or so in Kyiv, air raid sirens have been going off. That is to indicate that there is a VVIP movement. There are videos doing the rounds of social media as well of his cavalcade passing by downtown Kyiv. We can now confirm Leslia Velenko, who is a senior Ukrainian member of parliament, has confirmed that US President Joe Biden has landed in Kyiv. Remember, he's en route to Poland. He's supposed to go to Warsaw tomorrow. So this is en route to Poland. You can see the first pictures of US President Joe Biden just as we approach the first anniversary of this war. This war was launched on the 24th of February. It's going to be exactly a year by the end of this week. So on the week when Ukrainians will be looking back at this torrid year that it has been for them and for their country, Joe Biden, arguably the world's most powerful man, the world's most powerful politician, landing up in Kyiv, expressing solidarity with the Ukrainian people, expressing solidarity with Vladimir Zelensky's government. Remember, he has led a rather valiant effort to take on a much stronger, much bigger army of Russia and a much bigger leader in Vladimir Putin. So this is a huge message of support from the American president to his Ukrainian counterpart and also to the Ukrainian people, that America is standing firmly and solidly behind this war effort. This is, of course, as far as Ukraine is concerned, an attempt to try, this is an existential crisis. I mean, if they lose this war, they lose their country. And as the country marks 1 year of this brutal war after having been launched as a special military operation by Vladimir Putin, it is now confirmed, and you can see these pictures of President Joe Biden of the United States walking down central Kyiv. He's meeting with President Zelensky and other senior members of the Ukrainian government. He will be subsequently going to Warsaw tomorrow, but we're expecting a briefing by senior government officials of Ukraine any moment now. In the run-up to this touchdown, as it were, of course, this was a highly secretive visit. It was kept under wraps for a number of days in the run-up to this visit. And even this morning, you know, it is not like information was trickling in either from the U.S. White House administration or from media reports in the U.S. about the possibility of Biden, touching down in Kyiv. But now you can see those live pictures of U.S. President Joe Biden in Kyiv, meeting with Zelensky as well as other senior leaders of the Ukrainian government. He's going to spend a few hours there and then make his way towards Warsaw to Poland, where he's expected to give a major speech tomorrow on this one-year war effort. So clearly, this is a big, big moment. Symbolically, maybe not materially, but definitely symbolically, the fact that the US president is in Kyiv. We've had, the UK Prime Minister, when Boris Johnson was the UK Prime Minister, he had gone to Kyiv. We've seen other leaders, the former Israeli Prime Minister had gone to Kyiv, but we haven't seen the American president go to Kyiv since this war began. So I think it's a significant moment, this, definitely high on optics, high on solidarity, the photographs, the symbolism, that'll be huge. But what may this translate into in terms of material support for Ukraine, I think that is something that we'll have to wait and watch out for.
Absolutely. And Zaka, like you rightly said, this is one of the very important, in fact, decisive moments in Joe Biden's presidency. And of course, all eyes will be on that very speech, or the kind of messaging that he sends out to Russia through that speech in Warsaw.
Absolutely. So that was there you can see the still, you can see both Zelensky and Biden to the right and Zelensky to his left. They are walking down downtown Kyiv is what we've been told. This is a hugely symbolic moment, no doubt about it. Like I said, since this war began, the US president has not touched down in Kyiv. He has now. And the fact that this entire, visit was supposed to be to Poland tomorrow, he was supposed to make a big speech.
Back in 2020, the Indian government banned more than 100 Chinese apps for national security reasons. But many of these applications are now back in the Indian market, but with different identities.
Definitely, there are almost 50 to 60% apps those were banned during that time. I think there were more than 150 applications those were banned. And each of these applications had a huge user base in India. These were dangerous to that extent that they can steal lots of personal private information from our phones. But if you do a little deep dive, if you see that owners' details and that owners of their shareholding patterns, etc., you will identify easily that these are actually the same app. Their signature is same, but they are there on Play Store with different name.
CNN News18 found that some of these suspected Chinese apps may have rebranded and relaunched, but they are up to their old tricks, illegally storing data of Indians. One such app is Tiki, which is allegedly owned by Bigo Technology, the same company which created apps like Leaky and Bigo Live.
So I did a little investigation on both these domains, ShareKaro and Tiki.video. Those are so claiming that they are owning these apps. On Tiki.video, we see the domain history, server history, that where this domain was hosted and the IP addresses. So you could see it through this simple website, viewdns.info, where we just typed this domain and we found that this server was hosted in different IP addresses. And two of these IPs are from Hong Kong. and these are owned by a company called Bigo Technologies Private Limited. So it is clearly linked with some Chinese connection, Tico.video.
And this is not the only such dubious app. Share Karo, Hello, Resso are all allegedly owned by Chinese firms.
Namaste and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. Jai Hind, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we are going to start with a special, exclusive news break. Ladies and gentlemen, beware. Tonight, we start with the need for you and me, collectively as a country, to take the right stand with respect to some